Welcome to the Big Bets on Campus podcast. I am your host, Kai McKeon, joined by the rest of the three-man weave crew, Matt Cox and Jim Root. Every Monday morning, we'll be dropping a new BBOC episode talking all things betting in the world of college hoops. On today's episode, it's our standard format, some big games, some mid-major games, some live dogs, some favorites, some spots, and of course, our beloved trash section where we talk about the grossest game of the week. And fellas, no spoilers, but I picked out a pretty gross game that we're going to talk about at the end of the show. Let's jump right into it. As always, we start with the big games. Got some nice ones on Monday and Tuesday. Monday, fellas, Kansas hosts Iowa State at the Fog. We're using KenPom spreads. I do think the real spread probably is out there by now. We can get eyes on that if we'd like. But Kansas -3 per KenPom against Iowa State, -3. Well. Excellent. Yes. Iowa State off a crazy defeat at the hands of Arizona. Caleb Love half-court shots into overtime. And then they just lost to Kansas State at Hilton Coliseum for the first time in like 30 games. I think 29 in a row they won. Kansas, likewise, suffered a terrible beat, up by 21 points against Baylor. And the Bears came back and beat them by 10. Worth noting, Iowa State won the first game by 17. Jim, do you like a side in this particular matchup?
I'm tempted by Iowa State, but I'm more just baffled, confused by what's going on with both of these teams. Kansas gave up 60 in the second half to Baylor, and that was with VJ Edgecombe limping off. It was like mostly Rob Wright. They're down to 5 guys, and those guys still torched that Kansas defense. It's been awesome all year. Top 10 defense. They've had a bunch of halves, so they've given up less than 20 points. So to see them give up 60 is confusing. But then, Matt, I look over at the other side, and Iowa State lost the second half at home by 20 to Kansas State, a team who is under 500 and has no chance of making the NCAA tournament. So it leaves me very confused with these two. To me, it felt a little more of an outlier performance for Iowa State compared to Kansas, because I just have thought Kansas has been a little bit limited all season, given the lack of wing scoring, wing explosion, and the very specific nature of the Harris, Dickinson, Adams trio. So I'm tempted by Iowa State, Matt, but I do fear some revenge. Big Monday, Fog Allen Fieldhouse. It's not one I can talk myself into betting.
Yeah, I think the price is right. Closed 5.5 first meeting. We're saying 4 points roughly for each home. Obviously, 2 great home court venues. I think that adds up. But yeah, Jim, I think the Iowa State thing was more of a K-State, maybe not like back, we'll say, but playing better, and certainly team that we know is capable of playing to a very, very high rating when they're actually dialed up. We just haven't seen that much this year. So I kind of give Iowa State a pass on that. I like Iowa State here. I do. Kansas at home just doesn't feel as intimidating, as scary with this group right now. I know Harris came back, looked good last game still. I like the clones. I'm not going to bet it, but that's kind of where my lean lies currently.
I kind of lean Kansas, man. I look at the first matchup and I see more repeatable, I guess, not success, but Kansas's defense inside the arc was terrific against Iowa State. Kansas missed like 4 for 11 from the free throw line. DeJuan Harris had his worst free throw shooting game ever, I think, in that game. And the turnovers were out of control for Kansas. Maybe that happens again. Iowa State, of course, that's kind of what they do on defense. But at home in the Fog, lean towards Kansas there. No official play, though, with you guys. Kind of a toss-up. Tuesday, 4 really good games here. We got Arizona traveling to BYU. And because of that crazy win against Iowa State and a knockoff of the Sun Devils in Tempe, the Cats are tied at 9-1 for the Big 12 lead with Houston. We got Kentucky going to Ole Miss. The Rebs have lost 4 of 5. Kentucky, of course, just lost to John Calipari on their home floor. Craziness. Michigan State's going off to UCLA. The Spartans are off their first Big 10 loss of the year. And don't look now, Matthew Cox, UCLA, 5 straight wins after a 4-game losing skid. And then finally, Baylor at Texas Tech. Tech off a massive win at Houston. Baylor, we just talked about, massive comeback against Kansas, shorthanded without Jeremy Roach still. Matthew, can I convince you in any games here? We can go through them a little bit each one, but do any jump off the page for you immediately from a betting perspective?
Yeah, Texas Tech is the one. Baylor's been awesome. We talked about how good their freshmen have looked. I just think this is probably a spot in the schedule where a younger team, again, going to altitude at Lubbock, we know that kind of, they fared pretty well in the double altitude road in BYU, Utah, but didn't look invincible. I think this is one where again, just because they're relying on so little bodies with the youth, we'll see what the number is. 7 sounds pricey. But I think it's probably in that neighborhood, probably 5, 6, maybe 7. I think if it's under 7, I'll probably be laying the lumber with the Red Raiders, Jimbo.
Yeah, just to clarify, I feel like people are going to be like, "What? Texas altitude? What are you talking about?"
Texas Tech, yes, sir, yeah.
Yeah, no, Texas Tech is at altitude, so confirmed.
Oh,
It's
right,
like the
yeah.
25th highest
Ken had it
elevation
at
of any.
20th, I think, right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure that's clear for people that are not screaming at us through the headphones there. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Like if Baylor just continues losing bodies, if Roach is still not out with, not back with his concussion, Edgecombe, we don't know for sure what his status is going to be. And they did get down 20 at home to Kansas. Like I know they had that just insane second half, but it's still a team that's, struggled big time for the first 20 minutes of that. On the other side, yeah, I mean, I don't know really what to make of Texas Tech. JT Toppin's going to be fresh because he played like 2 minutes before getting ejected from that Houston game. So you've got that going there. But are they top 10, Kai? That's where they're at in Ken Palm right now. It's where they're going to be priced.
Yeah.
That number's going to feel high. I'm actually looking at the other Big 12 one, BYU at home, catching Arizona there. It just kind of feels like Caleb Love might have a stinker at altitude. The one thing that spooks me is we always like the travel teams going to altitude. It's going to be tough. So I like to back BYU, but they're coming all the way back from UCF.
Yeah.
Like it's not like they have convenient travel. I think we talked about that on the show a couple times this season where BYU somehow always in a worse travel spot, even though they're at home. But I do think they're trending up. They've won 4 in a row. Arizona feels like a pretty good sell high spot. Kind of the way Matt's talking about the young team with Baylor. Arizona's not as young. They're a much more experienced team, but it feels like a tough spot in the schedule when they've won 10 of their last 11.
Yep, I agree. BYU is exactly where my mind went immediately. You see the market kind of hit these home teams heavier. We'll say I would expect BYU to take some money despite Arizona's recent success. I'd probably lay up to 3 with BYU. Honestly, I like them that much. I do think this is their game here. Your point about the travel coming back from UCF is a good one. We saw that scenario play out a couple times already this season. I do lean towards Tech as well. It feels like this depth thing has to catch up with Baylor eventually. Of course, will Roach be back is a question. Robert Wright's been incredible, their freshman point guard. The other 2 games, Kentucky's a team I don't really want to bet on or fade at this point. Certainly not fade because they are so kind of random. Beating Tennessee at Tennessee is crazy in itself, shorthanded. And then you lose to Arkansas at home. You lost to Vanderbilt before that, but you also smashed A&M and you competed with Alabama. It's a tough team to nail down and one I don't feel comfortable betting on. And Ole Miss has certainly given us a little bit of head scratchers as well this season. The UCLA Michigan State game, I kind of went towards UCLA, Matt. Michigan State falling for a second straight time. UCLA continuing that winning streak. They seem to be kind of flowing now after Cronin got on them a little bit in the press conference. Seems to have worked yet again.
Yeah, it does seem like Cronin has this streak ability. We saw it last year, right? And this year's team's just much better. And now they've found a new gear with Ade Mara just being an absolute beast up front. I think he had 7 and 7 and 4. He only played 20 minutes. Matchup was, I think they tried to go smaller. They tried to exploit Biddle, I think, so he wasn't as dominant as he was against USC or against Wisconsin, or I guess Washington for that matter. But I think this is a matchup where they're going to look to feature him pretty heavily. But with Bill out back, Mara, their front court's now, pretty damn impressive. Daly's been great. Their guard play's been consistent. Like Sky Clark's, Cronin raves about his defense. I do think this UCLA mojo is real. Now I know Michigan State's is equally as authentic. What at 9-1 right now in the Big Ten. Obviously, off that loss gives you even more juice right in that spot. But I do lean UCLA here. But again, nothing strong. I just think these are probably well priced, close coin flips with no real major edge for me to fire on these.
Yeah, I was tempted a little bit by Michigan State looking at it, but I think your guys' points are valid here. I mean, Michigan State, no travel because they're just in LA, going over to UCLA. But I don't think it's any surprise or any shocker that UCLA's run of good play has coincided with them staying in the Pacific time zone for like 3 weeks. Their only road trip has been
Mhm.
up to Washington and then over to USC across town. Cronin complained loudly after all their road trips they were doing before.
Yep.
It seems like they've kind of gotten more comfortable both in terms of playing together and just being home and not having to jump around the country. And again, I mentioned Michigan State doesn't have to do that because they just played at USC over the weekend. It's not like a travel spot for them. But UCLA did not play at all over the weekend. So they were like more well rested, more probably better prepared for that one. I'm actually getting close to backing UCLA. I think you guys you got me there. Yeah.
All right, kill him board, Jim. Yeah, you guys mentioned Adi Mara, excuse me. Worth noting, 15 blocks in the last 4 games for
He's
Mara.
been great.
Like,
And yeah, he's playing like 20 minutes a game.
I
It's
mean,
not like a 35 minute a game.
He's been
crazy.
insane. His block rate is over 18% in the conference play. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. Okay, those are the big games. We'll recap our picks kind of at the end, but I will be on BYU and UCLA of those two. Those will be my 2 picks out of there. We'll get Matt and Jim's thoughts too at the end of the show.
One more thing on Kentucky, Kaiser. Lamont Butler hasn't been back, and I know they won at Tennessee without him,
Yeah,
but
weird.
I still think he's like super important.
Agreed.
Just sets the tone as an on-ball defender, so keep an eye on him as well. And Pope didn't sound overly encouraged. They're like, we're hoping to get him back sometime. Not a specific.
It sounded very, very pessimistic. Like there's a lot going on there. Yeah, not good because I think they don't feel like a team that's short on guards, but they are kind of short on guards, and he's obviously their most important guy. So yeah, huge.
Yeah, I would say short on ball handlers, definitely, right? Maybe not a guard itself,
Raiders,
but
yeah,
per CBB analytics, plus 15 net rating for Butler on off stats. That's very good. 88th percentile in the country among guards. So Butler, very important this season for the on off analytics. Thank you, CBB analytics. Mid-major games. One to point out here on Monday and Tuesday. North Texas on Monday goes to UAB. North Texas -2 at UAB. These two teams are tied at 7-2 in the American. That is second place behind Memphis, of course. North Texas won game 1. However, UAB was up by 18 that game. I'm pretty sure we all backed UAB in that one and almost watched as our bet went up in flames. They did hang on the spread. Matt might have taken money line that game, so he's probably
money line. That was
more
dumb.
upset.
I'm gonna take any points offered with UAB involved. I'll be taking all of those points. That was credit to me by the
worth noting, however, North Texas, what they're coming off, they just lost to UTSA in Denton, and they had 13 points in the first half. I mean, that's impossible, Jim.
Yeah. Excuse me. Wow, I've got a little bug in my throat. Matt, I'm going to defer to you while I get some water quick.
Good.
UTSA is a weird team. Like I do think they actually have talent, and I'm not going to say I wasn't surprised by that result, but I kind of give North Texas a pass. I'm going to do the old throw it out the window. It doesn't make me think anything less of North Texas. And obviously North Texas pace and the way they can cramp it down, that's sort of, they put themselves in like the Virginia gallows of like, if you get down and you don't have like that juice, you put yourself in a tough spot here. I think it's a great bounce back spot for North Texas. However, matchup wise, we talked about this last time, right? UAB has pretty much the last 3 years matched up very well with North Texas. They can make tough shots. They kind of have like that talent, shot making ability that negates everything that pack line structure is so effective at. Quick turnaround, but man, I think there's no better time for a quick turnaround after losing at home to UTSA, the perceived cellar dweller of this league. Conflicting back and forth, Kai. So spot North Texas, matchup UAB, price.
It'll be probably pick. What is it?
It's North Texas -1 right now, 137.5 the total. I think I'm going to take UAB if it stays around pick. I think money on UAB is coming imminently by the time you hear this. I think UAB will be -1, -2. We'll see.
I'm gonna bet North Texas, Matthew. So I hope you're right, and I can get some
weight
points.
is my advice.
They're against top 150 opponents this year. North Texas 7-4, 63rd in the country per Bart Torvik. UAB 1-6 and 134th in the country. Like they've kind of been a beat up on bad teams. That's been their darling way of doing it. I don't think they beat good teams. The game against Memphis was terrible. Like they just got absolutely smashed against the team they should be playing up against. So I think now North Texas with that bounce back that you guys have mentioned. I'm going back to Mean Green.
I lean towards UAB, but I watched that first game and the eye test to me was North Texas is better. UAB was I mean, unconscious in the first half. They were 10 for 18 from three in the game. Now, they also dominated the glass. They won the rebounding battle. North Texas was 25 for 26 from the free throw line and also shot well from three. UAB shot well from free throw line as well. And UAB has the best player. Yaxel Lindeborg has been compared in stat categories with Cooper Flagg because of his versatility. He leads UAB in basically every single statistical category. He is the best player in this game. UAB just hasn't been, frankly, as good as North Texas. And I know North Texas just had a stinker, but they are the, I think, more stable, consistent team. Very back and forth, kind of like Matt, but I do lean towards UAB. Live dog section, fellas. This has been a good year for us in general. Last week was not good. We crapped the bed, as they like to say. Iowa, I think I was on Iowa. Failed against Ohio State. Kentucky did beat Tennessee outright. I don't think any of us actually took it. We did mention it though, so we mentioned it. We didn't take it. No real credit there. Butler, they failed after they blew the game against I believe it was Marquette last week. Georgetown got absolutely slaughtered to St. John's. Which I believe the matchup was. Wake, huge failure against Louisville. Minnesota didn't cover 13 or whatever it was, 15 against Michigan State. And then Eastern Michigan, they did get inside the number against Miami of Ohio, just barely, but no, of course, money line special. This week, not a ton of great options. I have three candidates here. I'm not sure I'm really convinced on any of them, but I'll throw these out. You guys can toss them back in my face or add more, of course. I got Iowa hosting Purdue. Iowa seems to be on this list every week, but fellas, they might just be bad. I think it's a good spot hosting Purdue, but Iowa's lost 4 or 5. They're kind of drain circlers right now. It seems like they blow a lot of covers late. It's kind of just like they fade. They're kind of like Butler in the way they just tail off. They get forked quite a bit at the end of games. So I'm not too confident in that one. Wyoming, +7 per KenPom hosting Utah State. The Cowboys, great coach in Sonny Wicks. They nearly won at Viejas at San Diego State. But Utah State is off a 19-point home loss in New Mexico. Utah State, categorically better team. That's a scary one. And then finally, I know, call me crazy, Indiana, +10 per KenPom. Going to get a pretty big money line price at Wisconsin. Indiana just played Purdue very close on the road. They lost to Maryland by 1. Probably should have won that game. They have the players, like individual players, but the coach, of course, is yikes. Great guards, a good coach. Mike Woodson's frankly not. And the Badgers defense does seem like a tough matchup for them. The way they defend the rim, the way they defend the paint, it might be a tough matchup for Indiana, especially on the road. Jim, do you like any of those three, or do you want to give me other candidates?
I have one other candidate I'm super excited about, but I will talk about these games first. I like that Indiana did not play Camden Carlisle last game. This is a drum I've been beating all season. I think they are better without him. Performing that well at Purdue is a good indicator for me. It could be tough, like Purdue and Indiana both coming off that rivalry. Maybe that is why it's a good spot for Iowa. I think those teams get pretty up for that game. I just don't know if Indiana or if Iowa can get any stops against Purdue. Purdue could be 1.3 points per possession, running away from it, scoring every time down the floor. That scares me. Interested in Indiana, though, Kai. I do think if they get double digits, I could be talked into that one. Wisconsin very reliant on their top two guards, the Tanjay Blackwell combination. Hopefully, Indiana can mask those guys. Miles Rice and Galloway, I think, are solid backcourt defenders. It's not like Mbako is the big problem defensively. Wisconsin doesn't have a type of player that punishes him, like the versatile athlete in the front court. So tempted by Indiana. Matt, do you want to comment on these before I get my dumpster diving money line here?
No, I kind of like Indiana as like a money line portfolio team. The rest, like, because they obviously have talent. We know they can play well. But it's not a team you want to back consistently. I just think like they have that volatility that you just don't know. At whack-a-mole, any game they could show up and play really well. So I sort of like, just as a theme, we probably will see Indiana on this section a lot more going forward. That's just my assumption. Kai, I like a crazy one for you here. How about LaSalle, the Explorers?
Okay. Against VCU?
17 points projected losers to VCU, who just beat the capital city rivalry was a bloodbath. I think they won by 40 against Richmond. LaSalle went into Bonnie's, won there. I think this team has like shot making, like play like rise above their head potential. Guards galore. They got Lily back last game, pretty big piece up front. They played close last season, kind of shocking. I thought this would be like this doesn't feel like a good matchup schematically, but I like that that Dunphy did play, a similar Odom team last year competitively. And again, you're just getting great value. Obviously, it's a Hail Mary swing here, but I do want to throw it out there. So definitely a pocket change type bet. I wouldn't go. Mortgage probably not.
Are you going to back the spread there, Maddie, on the Explorers, or just a little
I think
sprinkle?
it might just be a money because that's sort of like my. I think what did I say? SLU at VCU. I was like, I'm not betting SLU spread. I think if SLU's in this game, they have a chance to win it. I think they could get smashed too. Same kind of sentiment here. So yeah, volatility key.
Kai, I'm going Monday night, Southland, where people probably don't spend a lot of time. But Nichols just beat McNeese over the weekend. And now they got Houston Christian coming to town, who in theory is bad, but they're number 2 in the country against the spread this year. 16-4 against the number. Craig Doty's done a great job elevating them in his first season. I think this is a wonderful spot. They're getting 8 points per the Ken Palm line. I'll double check the real line in a second here. But I just think catching Nichols off that massive, massive win, the biggest win you can get in the Southland against McNeese, the big bully. And then Houston Christian team's been outperforming expectations all year. So I am going to take that money line for a little bit. And the spread is 8, what I'm looking at right now. So give me the Huskies.
I dig it, Jim. In conference play, Houston Christian, very good shooting team, nearly 39% from 3. They take a lot of threes relative to other Southland teams. So, hey, high variance. We like that. Why not take a swing? Yeah, good letdown. I totally missed that Nichols beat McNeese. That is a crazy result for the Southland.
It was funny. Will Wade talked about that on our Discord over the summer. He's like, Tevin Sadler just throws weird defenses at us every time.
Yeah.
They're so well prepared. So it seems like Sadler might have the secret blueprint to beating McNeese.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, yeah, not much conviction for me there. I think honestly Indiana's my favorite one out of the 3, but it's very hard to trust Mike Woodson at this point. I might sit the live dog section out this week, fellas. There's not a ton of good options for me in the next couple of days. Okay, let's go favorites. Maybe we can find a couple in here. Last week we took Southern against Mississippi Valley State. They did push the Ken Palm line, if you want to go by that, 21. Miracle pretty much push. Did not cover the actual line, so that's a loss. Georgia did cover. They beat South Carolina after trailing for much of the game. So Georgia, nice little comeback there. And the Zags, Gonzaga murdered Oregon State. It was a 30-point drubbing revenge tour for Gonzaga. So a good call there for the week.
And a quick FU to the odds makers that made that game like 14.5 when Ken Palm had it 10.
Incredible. Hey, they were right. This week, just 2 for me at least to mention. I do think I'll get involved in at least one of these games. First on Monday, Pitt is hosting Virginia. Ken Palm's got it 12. Market's probably around there. Correct me if I'm wrong, fellas. The Who's of Virginia, they're down to 133 in Ken Palm. This team, we worried about the Tony Bennettless Virginia squad, and it's starting to get real bad. They just lost at home to Virginia Tech. Pitt is off a road loss to Wake, and heck, has not looked that very good in ACC play either, but they need to start racking up wins with margin. This would be a good time to do it. Can they get there with the pace that Virginia plays at? Will the possession count be high enough? We will see. Tuesday is the one I like better, Matthew, and you're the Mac whisperer, but I'm going to go to you first for this one. Akron, minus 14 against Ball State. The Zips are insane. January 3rd, since that day, they've played 1 single-digit game. They've been crushing teams. Best offense and defense in the MAC. It seems like the MAC is very top-heavy. The bottom teams just don't really hold a candle. Ball State, I would classify as a bottom team, maybe middle team, but more close to the bottom. So Akron will be a play for me.
I like both these. I have 2 favorites on the card, both Pitt and Akron as well. Pitt, I mean, just look at Virginia, right? They've only 2 games they've played respectively. Boston College, bad basketball team, in Miami, not a real basketball team. So it's just like they haven't really been competitive, and since that, I think, SMU game, they lost by 2. I just think they're a flatlining team. Pretty simple there. Big spot for Pitt. I know Pitt's sort of in this like weird part of the ACC schedule where we stopped taking them seriously after they dominated the non-con, but I do think it's a good spot for Pitt. And then Akron, you listen to Michael Lewis, Ball State's coach, and he talked about this after the NIU game. They got smashed by NIU. It's like we just don't do well against these teams that, small spread, like, that can spread and shred like Akron does this year, because they're kind of playing, Peyton Sparks is kind of in there. They had more of an antiquated type of lineup. And I think he's really frustrated. So I think Akron is set up to, schematically eviscerate what I think has been a pretty key weakness for Ball State all year. I also just don't like this Ball State team just from the vibe meter. It feels like Lewis hates the team. I don't think like the boomerang story of Sparks coming back just hasn't really, I don't know, stuck. I think this is a fade team for sure. I think when they go down pretty hard.
I'm with you guys on both of these. I think it makes a lot of sense. You've hit most of the key points. The one I wanted to add is that Virginia's like not playing any defense either. They're 15th in the ACC in defense. The ACC is bad with some really bad defenses. So to be that far down, and it's not like shooting luck. They're just getting crushed at the rim. They don't rebound. They've never forced turnovers, and they're a little bit drained circling too. Kai said it about Iowa earlier. Virginia is sim the season. Let's get to the end of the year and get our coaching search going. I think that's where most of the fans' heads lie, anyways. And kind of stepping on the toes of the next section, Kai. But I'm going to be betting Houston.
Yeah. Yep.
Awful loss against a team with a really bad offense.
Yeah.
It feels a lot like when Houston lost early in the season, then they beat Butler at home by 28. And we've seen what they can do to some of these inferior teams at the Fertitta Center. So, yeah, I will be laying it with Houston.
Love it, Jim. Yes, we will talk about Houston this next section. So, yes, seems like we all like Pitt and Akron. Those will be plays for me for the favorites. Spots. Last week, Penn State actually covered against Michigan. I think we talked about that was a better spot for Michigan. Penn State ended up covering, almost won that game. Little Rock game, that was the weird one where they played at Lindenwood right after playing Lindenwood. Turns out having no juice in that arena was the main factor. Little Rock lost outright to EIU. The OVC is tough to bet. The OVC is tough to bet. The Zags, we discussed, of course, against Oregon State. Georgia, we discussed. Seton Hall, I think, did not cover barely against Providence. These games, I don't think we all took. I just want to mention what we talked about. But San Jose State came through, and they've been coming through all year. They're the number one ATS team in the country. The San Jose State Spartans, 17-4 this year, 10 miles. Not winning a ton of basketball games, but winning against the number. That's what counts. So this week.
Good teams win, great teams cover. That's right, Timmy Miles, baby.
This week, Monday, nothing. Tuesday, spots. I picked out a couple here. First one's in the Valley. Murray State, +5 per KenPom hosting Drake. The Racers have really tumbled, but they're still, in my opinion, a pretty good team. A lot of talent, a lot of athletes. They've lost 3 in a row. They did beat Drake in Des Moines on January 5th. Drake has not lost since. Seems like a good spot to me for Murray. They're confident they can beat this team. You're getting up for the best team in the conference, or at least 1-2 with Bradley. Murray State is likely a team I'm going to look to back on Tuesday. And I think you might even see some Drake money in that game, just based on how they're playing. Who knows? Not a Nostradamus when it comes to that stuff, the market, which way it sways. But I would be surprised if the market fades. Drake's been betting him all year. Matt, any opinion on that game before I go?
Yeah, it's weird. I don't get Murray. I really don't. They have like 2 of the better wins in conference, winning at Drake and at Northern Iowa, and they've just not been the same the last month. They're actually not been very good at home either. They're usually like one of those stronger home teams in that conference. Doesn't give me the warm and fuzzies. I wonder if the lack of depth is playing a part, but I don't know. You don't lose to Missouri State by 21.
That's
and
weird.
That's a red flag to me. I think you're right. It's a good spot. I'm just not gonna. That result is burned into my brain right now because Missouri State's terrible. They've been terrible the last month of the year.
I'm a little spooked by it. Correct me if I'm wrong, both of you guys. Isn't this an old Allen Boston, the road revenge? Like team loses at home first
he does
meeting.
like that. Mm-hmm.
So backing Drake on the road there. So I'm going to stay away. I'm a little spooked by it.
Fair enough. We talked BYU hosting Arizona. I know Jim and I like that one, so that'll be on the card as well. Kansas State. This is interesting here. Arizona State, probably a better spot for the Sun Devils, honestly. Off a couple losses. They're hosting the Wildcats, who are off an insane run. Beat Iowa State, one of the best wins in the country this season in Ames. K-State's looked awesome the last 3 games. So while the spot's solid for ASU, it might be hey, bet the hot team, bet the hot hand right here, Matt. ASU also kind of off a weird Bobby Hurley, BJ Freeman drama. Yeah. Freeman headbutted Love and Hurley didn't shake Caleb Love's hands, basically say he's not going to vote for him for all conference. really mature stuff from the Hurleys all season. This one's I just wanted to mention this one because it's interesting. You're seeing a kind of a low number, but K-State's hot. Arizona State probably a better spot here.
Yeah, you're right. I'm torn there. Injuries for Arizona State. They got healthy last game, right? I think Clayton's played, and they've had
I think Sandon's back.
and
Yes.
Sandon's been back, and he's been the last 3 he's played well. So I don't know. This one's tough. I kind of think this Arizona State team is, you're right, Kai, like it has a very brittle psyche, and they could easily be a falling knife at any moment. And maybe if you're going to look to try and pounce on that, to time that, why not do it with the hot hand team in K-State, who we talked about at the onset? Talented, has potential. Tang continues to believe this team is really good. I feel like he's almost just stubborn, but the last 3 games he's been right. So call this a spot, call it ride the hot hand. I think K-State, the more I think, I'm going to play that one. That's going to be a play for me.
I'm considering it. I'm looking at some of the numbers here. Like last 3 games, as good as K-State's looked, well, they're shooting 47% from deep in those 3, and their opponents are 31%.
Yeah.
So you're calling them correctly the hot team. Are they going to stay hot and keep shooting? It's entirely possible. Kai, we always say the best way to win is to just know who's going to make threes.
Yeah, it's easy.
And it seems like K-State's doing that at a really astronomical rate right now. Hausen, I totally believe it, but everybody else is knocking down shots too. So yeah, I would it'd be K-State or nothing for me there. I'm not gonna get in bed with Bobby Hurley.
No.
Interesting that K-State has the worst 3-point opponent shooting luck in the Big 12, despite limiting opponents to the least amount. Usually those are, in theory, correlated metrics. You don't allow many. You should get the benefit of the doubt. But so maybe they're just, collecting on that owed regression debt. That's my theory with K-State.
Yeah, it's crazy. They're 16th in 3-point percentage defense, despite what I just said, 31% in the last 3 games. It's been down.
Very interesting indeed. And then finally, yes, Jim mentioned it, Houston. Minus 23 per KenPom against Oklahoma State. They're angry, man. I think it's Pound Town on the Cowpokes. Oklahoma State also coming off a win against Utah. This Houston team, I'm going to be stubborn, man. I'm telling you, this team is really good. I know they've lost a few games here. They're really, really good, and they just decimate inferior competition. So Houston will be a play for me.
Yeah, 49 points
State's
for West
offense.
Virginia,
Okay, Jim.
36 points for Utah. Where's the BYU at 55? Yeah, if you don't have a good offense, it looks even worse against Houston. That's kind of what they're built to do. Small fears that they've been banged up. Sharp's been hurt a little bit. Robert's been hurt a little bit. Rolled his ankle again. And Oklahoma State's actually good on the defensive glass. Tops in the entire Big 12 in defensive rebound rate. That's big against Houston. But Matt, maybe what I do here is I just bet Oklahoma State team total under because I have no clue how they score.
Yeah, I bet Oklahoma State the first meeting, just disaster decision by me. They had 1 point the final 10 minutes of the end of the first half. I mean, it's just like they couldn't. I don't think Oklahoma State's offense is good at all. But you're right, when you play Houston, they make you look really, really bad and stupid. So,
to your point though, Matt, that first matchup, Houston was kind of dominating the whole game, but Houston had 5 offensive rebounds, just 5, and Oklahoma State got to the line 18 times. They're going to get to the line, they're going to rebound. Oklahoma State was just 28% from 2, and they just couldn't score.
Yeah, that's all Houston there. I think when you play that game in Houston, the free throw disparity will probably swing back in the Cougars.
You'd think, but I watched the Houston Texas Tech game and I saw some tough calls on the Cougs, we'll say.
Yeah.
And Texas Tech is both ways, but it should be more one-sided on the home floor. Okay. Finally, the trash section. We talked about Northern Illinois last week. They actually snuck inside the number against Akron, just barely to cover against the Zips. This week, there aren't a lot of dumpsters on Monday, but this one is a special dumpster. So there are 364 teams in the country, fellas, as you guys know. 362, Coppin State plays at 360, Maryland Eastern Shore in a MEAC battle. UMES is actually favored by 6 per KenPom, despite being 0-5 in the conference. They've played a top 20 schedule in the country. No real shame in them being just beaten every single game because they have just played just a tough schedule. Coppin, number 1 defensive turnover rate in the league. Coppin also completely inept on the offensive end. They're the 2nd worst offense in the country, right ahead of Mississippi Valley State. They are scoring 0.869 points per possession. That's atrocious. Going to be a good old-fashioned trash game. Do you have any opinion on this game, Matthew, at all?
No, I was actually looking at the MAC because we talked about how the MAC's bad this year, and I like the MAC. It's a fun league historically. This year, not as
The
fun.
MIAC, you mean? MIAC.
No, just the M single
Oh,
A.
Mac. Oh,
Oh, you're just
actual
ignoring
Mac.
this premise completely.
Yeah, I am. I'm
Yeah,
because I'm
that's
trying to
why I
find
got
one that I actually have an
confused.
opinion on. I know I'm like too good for the extra board. I'm kind of pompous and arrogant in that regard, so I have no actual opinions on these. But Jim, I'll hockey pass to you. I have a couple of Mac takes. Kai, you talked about Akron in the last one, but yeah, go ahead, Jim.
No, Matt. You sound ready to rock. Fired in, man.
Well, Kai teased it with NIU. I think NIU's like call it a mini wagon, like a kid wagon, if you will. Like they've been, they played Toledo very competitively. They got Ethan Butler back. They got McPherson back. They got Muhammad back. Like it looks like a real team now. Like they have talent. They've never been devoid of talent. Not saying they have upper echelon Akron level talent, but they do have talent. It just hasn't been healthy at all this year. I think against Bowling Green, who is close to getting healthier. I still think that team, it's the first time NIU will play a team that they will have more bodies than, frankly. And I think their shooting actually could potentially slice and dice BG's kind of leaky zone. We love Marcus Johnson. He got a little pub because he had that big game with Michigan State, right? The non-con. But they don't play any defense, and he's kind of a microcosm as to why. So NIU is sort of a trash pick for me, Kyle, on Tuesday.
To your point, they've covered 5 straight games, NIU. So they have been on a bit of a streak. Yeah, Bowling Green. Not laying 6 points with Bowling Green or whatever the spread's going to be.
If I get a touchdown, I'll be a Husky. Yeah,
I'll lean your way as well, Matt, on that one.
Kai, I'm just looking at the one you proposed, Eastern Shore and Coppin. It's kind of a big pace tug of war, where Eastern Shore is the slowest team in the conference by possession length, and Coppin is the fastest. You mentioned how bad Coppin's offense is. So if Eastern Shore at home can control tempo a little bit, I think under might have some juice there, just because Coppin can't score, and if they can't get pace, they can't get transition, then it could get really just a gross game.
Love it. Okay, fellas. No spotlight section again this week. We will try to get back on that in weeks to come.
Ooh, wait! I just want to
unless
mention
Jim has one.
No, one more fun fact on the Eastern Shore game. I should have. They're 6-point favorites per KenPom. They have no D1 wins this year, so it's kind of crazy. That
I'd call that a good spot for UMES. Then they're hungry. They know they can win this game. They're favored. Probably the first time all year they're favored is my assumption.
I would guess that is correct. Yes.
So, yeah. Eastern Shore is a lean there for sure. Okay. Recap on the picks. I'm taking, a nice little smattering here. BYU, UCLA, Houston Christian. Jim convinced me. I'm in.
Yes.
I'm taking him on the spread against Nichols. Expect around 8 or so in that one. Pitt, I'm going to take against Virginia, laying probably around 12. Akron, laying around 14, 15 against Ball State. Murray State, I am going to stick my neck out there. I need to get at least 5. If it's less than 5, no thanks. At least 5 there. And then NIU. Matt convinced me on that one. Hope to get a touchdown. I don't think we're going to see it. I actually expect NIU to take money, probably down to 5. But Huskies for me. Matt, what do you have?
Huskies as well. One of my 5. I'm going to ride both of the bullies you suggested with Akron and Pitt. We discussed K-State. We also discussed. I talked myself into it. That's 4, and then for a fraction of a unit, LaSalle money line from the cheap seats. Get hot, Explorers.
Love it, man.
Get hot.
Shoot to get hot, shoot to stay hot. I had a poor week last week, so I'm going to keep volume a little bit lower. As much as I am tempted by both Pitt and Akron, I'll just hopefully watch you guys collect winners and not and end up missing out. But I'm taking BYU -1. We talked about it, maybe up to 3. I would love to get 2.5. They covered 2.5 for us against Baylor in overtime, so give us that one more time, Cougars. Another Cougars, Houston, -23. I'm going to go half unit on that and a full unit bet on Oklahoma State team total under somewhere around 55-ish. That's where KenPom's got it projected. I anticipate it'll be around there. I said North Texas -1, the more disciplined team against UAB. I think they out-execute them. And Houston Christian, +8 and money line, full unit on the spread and like a half unit on the money line. Hope to get a big winner there. So that's all I'm going with this week.
Love it. A healthy slate for the Weavers. Thank you for joining us on the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Tune in the rest of the week for the other guys taking you through the college basketball slate. We will be back next week, Monday morning, talking more Monday and Tuesday early week hoops. Till then, good luck on your bets. Enjoy college basketball. Goodbye.